Alright, welcome back, biology class. This is video part 3 on section 9-2. Before we go on, let's review our objectives. Describe what happens during the Krebs cycle. Can you do that? If not, go back and look at it again. That's definitely something you need to know. Now we're going to talk about how high energy... computer, don't do this to me. We're going to talk about how high energy electrons are used by the electron transport chain. Okay, so let's move on. We're on page 228. Let's check out this awesome picture. Doesn't this look familiar? This looks like the electron transport chain from photosynthesis, which happened in the chloroplast. Oh yeah, okay. This time though, we're in the mitochondrion, which is not the chloroplast. And where is this happening? This is happening in this little membrane right here on the edges. So the electron transport chain in the chloroplast, in the mitochondria is around the edges here. In the chloroplast it happened in the thylakoids, but now it's happening in the intermembrane space right here, which is on the inside here, and it's happening in the matrix, which is right here. Okay, so let's read. Moving right along, the electron transport chain. The Krebs cycle, let's use this. Here we go. The Krebs cycle generates high energy electrons that are passed, that are passed to NADH and FADH2. The electrons are then passed from those carriers to the electron transport chain. Key concept: the electron transport chain uses high energy electrons from the Krebs cycle to convert ADP into ATP. Look at figure 9.7 to see how this happens. Alright, so here comes in two NADH molecules. Those high energy electrons are passed into the proteins of the electron transport chain. As they're passed in, the individual proteins pump in hydrogen ions. Here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one. Alright, and the next step of the chain, FADH2 adds two more high energy electrons, and they move on to the next step in the chain, which pumps in more protons from the matrix. And finally, the electrons continue to move through the chain, and every time they go to a new protein in the chain, they pump in protons. And near the very end, you'll see that the electrons join oxygen to make water. Now here's something I want you to realize, class. Check it out. The oxygen you breathe in and the oxygen in carbon dioxide that you breathe out are not the same. The oxygen you breathe in gets added to hydrogen. The oxygen you breathe in gets added to electrons and 4 protons to make water. That's what you urinate out. That's not what you breathe out. Alright, pretty cool. Moving right along. Let's keep reading. Let's read A together. High energy electrons from NADH and FADH2 are passed along the electron transport chain. In eukaryotes, the electron transport chain is composed of a series of carrier proteins located in the inner membrane of the mitochondrion. In prokaryotes, the same chain is in the cell membrane. High energy electrons are passed from one carrier protein to the next. At the end of the electron transport chain is an enzyme that combines these electrons with hydrogen ions and oxygen to form water. Oxygen serves as the final electron acceptor for the electron transport chain. Thus, oxygen is essential for getting rid of low energy electrons and hydrogen ions, the waste of cellular respiration. And that's really important. Check it out. In the very end, these high energy electrons are pushing protons into the inner membrane space. Where is that? The inner membrane space is right here in the mitochondrion. But when they get down to the bottom, they're like cold bricks. They're not very valuable at all. In fact, they would clutter up the cell if there was no one to take it. But oxygen is saying, hey, I want some electrons. And so the cell combines oxygen with protons to make water. All right. So let's move on to the next video, page 227.